Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of our Tom's Hardware Live CES and Innovation Week coverage. We are just getting started right now with iBuyPower, who are going to show us their their really fascinating new case. Um, and I'm Avon Pilch, joined as frequently by managing editor Matt Safford, and today iBuyPower's Brad Sokin. Brad, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, doing good. Well, as good as we can all be doing, stuck here inside all this time. But we're making it work.
Yeah. So I understand iBuyPower has some really fascinating new products. You've got a refresh of an existing PC line, and you've got a brand new case.
Yeah. So this year we are, like you said, we are showing off two different new products. The first is an update to our Element CL desktop. This was something we showed off last year at CES 2020. It's sort of our take on the pre-built uh, a pre-built version of a custom loop desktop. So those high-end, aspirational systems that have custom liquid-cooled CPU and graphics card. We wanted to make sure that we were going to take that idea and bring it to kind of down to the masses, uh, where anybody could purchase a custom liquid cooled desktop and not have to pay an arm and a leg for it, compared to a something of similar spec that just has an air cooler or an all-in-one liquid cooler, and also that it could be built quickly, and built durably, so that we can ship it pre-filled, pre-assembled, not have any damage along the way. You don't want people to open up their brand new PC in a puddle. So we custom designed the fittings and the water blocks to make sure that they were as durable as possible. We have special fittings that have a push to connect mechanism. So when you push the tube into the fitting, it stays put. There's no compression collar or anything like that that you need to screw down. It's a 2-second operation. If you do need to replace the tube, it's really easy to remove. Um, and this year we are announcing support for NVIDIA's 30 series graphics cards. So that's RTX 3080 and 3070 water blocks, in addition to some new fans to help kind of increase cooling performance for the added heat and power that come from those cards.
Great. Um, so I just want to remind anyone who's watching live that, as always, we're taking your questions. So if you're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, or Periscope, uh, enter if you have any questions or comments. We will get to them. But Brad, why don't we talk about that case, because that's really impressive.
Yeah, so the other product, which is our main reveal for CES this year, this is our Revolt 3 Mark III. So it's the third iteration of our Revolt 3 small form factor case. We did show off a concept at CES 2019 and CES 2020, and we've been kind of hard at work, kind of refining that layout and that design. And this is the final version. This is likely what we will be going to market with, the Mark III. So this is a performance and airflow focused small form factor case. It's still space optimized, so we're cramming as much high-end hardware as we can into a small space. It's 18.4 liters in volume, and it has support for the largest graphics cards on the market, 280 millimeter liquid cooling, two SSDs, one mechanical hard drive. Basically any spec that anyone might want to put in an ITX system. We're not limiting them based on the size of the case or the airflow that's possible to cool the components. Really, you can cram anything you want into this case. And as a sort of departure from what iBuyPower normally does, this is actually a DIY focused product. This is designed as a DIY product, a case and power supply combo first, rather than a pre-built system, which is what we would normally be announcing. So we really sat down and thought about what us as DIYers, what we would want this case to be like, versus what would make a good pre-built desktop. This is it's focused as a case first.
Cool. And it's I think I saw that there are filters on basically all the sides, right? I mean, there's plenty of ventilation there.
Yeah, so all the side panels, they all have every panel of the case, the all four sides and the top, have a mesh on them, so that it's breathable through every part of the case. The front panel is also mesh, so we won't be doing a tempered glass front panel. It will be a mesh front panel. So I have our front panel here. It's just a little difficult to keep taking off of this case. But yeah, this is what the front panel of the case will look like. So that's breathable, the sides are breathable, and everything's got dust filters on it.
So is it possible to see a side view of the case?
Yeah, so you can see the case itself as far as the layout goes. We got the graphics card up here in the front. You can see that 280 millimeter liquid cooler here on the side, and that is mounted to a hinged panel, so that if you do need to do maintenance to upgrade your memory or just get at your motherboard for whatever reason, it's really easy. You just undo a couple screws and open this panel up, and you can access that and then close it again. All the panels on the case remove very easily, so I can show you the other side here. Just pull on that, and it'll come off, and you can see we have our SSDs mounted back here behind the motherboard tray, the intake for the power supply, and the cutout for the motherboard to mount the cooler to.
So it seems like this case is really definitely not made for someone who wants to put lights inside, because it seems like the idea is compact, not showing off bling inside. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, when we were going through kind of the different design iterations, one of the considerations was, well, if we don't do a tempered glass side window, how are people going to see their components? And what we found is a lot of the ITX boards themselves, they kind of recognize that they tend to be covered up, whether it's because somebody's using a riser, or just has too many cables and things in the way. A lot of ITX cases don't show off the motherboard, but they will show off the graphics card. And so the mesh in the front of the case, with the graphics card installed, you will be able to see through that mesh and get a good glimpse at your graphics card. And that's sort of the most attractive piece of a system, at least a gaming PC, that we felt still needed to be kind of showed off.
It's certainly a departure from, I remember, the Revolt 2, which was like, had glass in the front, window in the front and a window on the top, and very different shape. I mean, when I first saw this, I mean, as much as I like RGB and I have glass front on my case, but it's refreshing to see something new that it just doesn't feel like it's following the same trend that we've seen in almost every case in the last few years, right?
Yeah, and another thing is, if for ITX, space optimization is obviously a big thing. You want the case to be as small as possible and still support all the higher end hardware. And adding RGB was just something that it takes up extra space. We wanted this really clean ID for the system, something that would blend in easily with really any setup that someone would have. And sometimes, RGB kind of works against that, especially you get some kind of spaceship looking design. I mean, the original Revolt 2, people kind of said it looked like a Gundam or something. And it was a very striking design. Everybody loved it. It's just, we think that that's kind of, on the way out, those ultra aggressive kind of robot stealth bomber looking IDs.
So what is at the bottom? Is that where the USB ports are?
Yeah, so the I/O here in the front of the case, you can see there's two USB Type A 3.0 ports. Those will go into the motherboard header, and then there is an audio jack and a Type C. The Type C is a pass-through, so if I lift the case up, you'll see up underneath there's all of the I/O for the motherboard and the graphics card. So all of the system I/O kind of it sits in this cavity in the bottom of the case, and then it comes out the back. There's a small opening here. knocked over my fan. There's a small opening down here, so the power plugs in there, and all the system I/O exits that way to keep a really clean presentation when the system is sitting on your desk. And we assume that most people are going to be placing this on their desk.
Yeah,
I would hope so, because
clean.
those USB ports would not be convenient on the floor.
Yeah, definitely not. But it's very clean. It's a very clean look. Like do you see this kind of being used a lot by people who are not gamers who are kind of looking for something that's a little more professional?
Yeah, that, and we do see that there are a lot of professional type of people who are gamers. They have their, the machine that they're using to do their editing or rendering, but then they're gaming on the side. And so we're not necessarily making a distinction and saying, oh, this is just for professional use, it's not for gamers. We think that gamers appreciate these kind of clean designs as well.
How many fans in total can you fit in it?
So the fans would be the two fans on the radiator. So we have, if you have a 280 millimeter radiator mounted in here, you'd have two 140 millimeter fans. And of course, if you have a 240, you get two 120 fans. But yeah, it'll be whatever is mounted to the radiator.
And so why did you decide to go with a built-in power supply rather than just letting the consumer bring their own PSU?
So right now, we're still finding that the choices available for SFX power supplies are somewhat limited, and it does require an SFX power supply to fit within this small volume. And another big reason is because everything is space optimized, you want to make sure that the cables are all the correct length to run to where they need to go. With an off-the-shelf SFX power supply, the manufacturers do a pretty good job of guessing how long those cables need to be. But in a lot of cases, especially with the graphics card power connectors, we find that they can be a little bit too long. And then what you end up with is a bunch of extra cable that you don't know where to put it. A lot of these cases, they're not designed with the same cavernous cable management space as an ATX case might have. You need somewhere to stash those cables, and you've already tried to cram as much hardware into every little cubic inch of volume, and you just don't have space for extra cables sometimes.
Definitely been there. ITX builds.
Yeah.
So can you say who makes the power supply?
Yeah, so the power supply will be made by High Power. They're a partner we've worked with for a very long time, supplying power supplies for our desktops, and they do a really good job, with keeping things both high quality, and very budget friendly. To make sure that like I said, we kind of have this theme of accessibility with a lot of our products, to make sure it's not overly expensive.
I think I read in the press release that you're also at least considering doing different colored mesh in the front to sort of add, some customizability and color to the case.
Yeah, so the case itself will come in a black version and a white version. So, but everything you see would be painted white instead of black. And then also, there would be a dust filter mesh behind the front panel. And there's also the mesh that's on all of the side panels. And we're experimenting with different highlight colors. There's probably going to be a render that you see that has a copper colored mesh. And we have experimented with white mesh on the white case and black mesh on the white case, or silver mesh. So we're looking to see like what people respond to, and if there's heavy demand for customization, we're open to including like a couple of different colors with the case itself, so that people can right out of the box pick like their color combo that they want.
Cool.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to see someone like try something like putting a red front on it, or to give it some accent color. So, is there an easy way to carry it, like to put it around? Is there some kind of handle?
Oh yeah, so I was gonna keep this as a secret reveal at the end, but the old Revolt cases, the Revolt 1 and 2, they were very focused on tournaments, on competition, and so we had to lug them all over the place to hundreds of them sometimes to big events, and one of the things that was missing from the Revolt 2 was an easy way to carry it. So we made sure that the Revolt 3 design had a really easy handle that pops out of the top of the case for when you want it, and if you don't want it, you can click it back into place and it kind of stays out of the way, and it'll make it, just to pick it up and move it from here to there, it's a lot easier, especially considering that it is kind of just a square box, in terms of a comfort while carrying the system. Having that handle helps a lot.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I also feel more comfortable carrying around something that doesn't have tempered glass on the side. So
Sure.
I think that's a plus for portability because I always worry about knocking into something with that glass. So
Yeah, and if you're
Yeah.
gonna throw it in your carry-on bag or something like that, then it's just another thing to worry about as they, that gets crammed into the overhead compartment or something, like, oh God, my glass, is it is it going to
yeah.
survive?
If you do it at home though, it can be interesting to break a tempered glass panel, because I broke one of the first early InWin case they sent me, had a tempered glass panel, and I cracked it like just a little, and it was almost like it was alive over like hours. Like I ended up putting it in a paper bag, and it kept making noise as it continued to slowly crack.
Yeah, you either get that or it explodes into 1,000
Yes.
tiny pieces in a half a second.
Yeah, I guess that's worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would go over really well in the airport. Really, really. So, what about dust filtration? How do you get the dust out?
Yeah, so every side of the case, so the four sides in the top are all mesh surfaces, and they all will have dust filters behind them. I have one of the extra side panels here, so this does have a magnetic dust filter that kind of sticks onto the inside here. So if you get it doesn't matter whether it's going to be an intake or an exhaust zone on the case, it will have a dust filter. So depending on the way that the components in the case have their airflow set up, that could end up being either way. And we make sure that there's just dust filters everywhere. And if you don't want them, then you can take them off.
I also, one of the things that I've sort of realized and was thinking about when I was looking at this is that because there's no tempered glass, the dust isn't going to be as visible. And as like the case that's on the floor in front of me has a glass front and RGB fans, and I swear, like 4 days after I clean the dust filter, like you can see dust on the filter again. So, I don't know. There's just something appealing about knowing, like, oh, I don't have to, wipe the dust off of this every week to make it look nice.
Yeah, at least it's doing its job. If
Yep.
it's on the outside of the filter,
Yeah.
that's what they're for. Yeah, and another thing, you brought up the handle before, that a little, Easter egg that we kind of snuck into the design, because we have this handle mechanism up here. Another thing that we built in was a small accessory holder. So there's a little metal rod that extends out of the side of the case here, that you can hang your headphones or VR headset or whatever on. And again, if you don't need it, you can just press it back into the case. It clicks back into place and gets out of your way.
That's great. I've never seen anything like that before. And if you're going to be keeping it on top of your desk, then maybe you could hang headphones off of that or something. And that's a great space saver. So, do we have any idea when this might be coming out?
Yeah, so we are going to keep taking feedback on this case over the course of CES and the weeks following. We'll be checking the comments on videos like these and seeing what people say about it. So we haven't started actually tooling this case yet. We're going to wait to see what people say, and if we do need to make any minor changes to make it even better. So we expect this to be available around June of this year, and we're targeting a price point of $200. US, and that includes the 700-watt SFXL power supply built in.
Yeah, I mean, and when you think about what an SFX power supply normally costs, you're not really paying that much for the case because those power supplies can be quite expensive.
And out of stock, and yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no question about it. Has that it is any of that affecting you guys with the in your development process with the difficulties of getting things because of tariffs and COVID and just other shortages?
Yeah, it's kind of been a nonstop challenge for the last, I don't know, it's been more than a year at this point. Of the tariff situation is more of we don't know what effect it's going to have because different companies have different strategies of how they deal with it, whether they, it just increase their prices or they move their production around. Um, and every time if they move their production, then we end up with a shortage of that part. And for our own stuff, so like this case in particular and the power supply and the element CL stuff, we have that stuff all kind of figured out beforehand and taken care of. But the individual components, it's all over the place. We got good supply of some stuff, and other stuff gets, it's still tough to get our hands on certain components right now.
Except for SSDs. SSDs seem to be the one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's no question. We see it. I mean, we see it every day. From our readers. I have a question here from the audience, and this is, I think, just kind of a general question. How long does it take for a PC to build and ship?
So that's a good question. I would say right now that answer is a little bit different than it typically would be. And normally in the past years, our build time, our lead time is around 2 weeks from the time you order it to the time it ships out. We did get quite a lot of orders over the holiday season, so over Black Friday and leading up through Christmas. Combination of, we had new Ryzen processors, we had new NVIDIA graphics cards, and everybody's still trying to game from home. So yeah, we do have a bit of a backlog right now. So I think that if you ordered a PC today, our projected ship out time is somewhere in the 6-week range. We just have a lot of systems we still need to build, but we're trying to close that gap. We've made some changes to how our processes work, and we've hired as many people as we can find that are qualified to build one of our computers, to try and get that backlog back down to, like I said, about 1 to 2 weeks is where we like to be in terms of order to ship time.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's how was your 2020? Did you see just a lot more people buying PCs than in prior years because of everything that's happened?
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of demand for PCs, and originally we thought that it was going to be a lot of people purchasing systems to just work from home, so CPU only, just office machine type specs. But actually, what it ended up being was a lot of people took up gaming as a hobby. That there were, especially, I'm guessing, some older folks who used to be gamers. Now whatever their hobby they used to take part in, they weren't able to do it, so they got back into gaming. And PCs are usually, or we like to think, the best way to enjoy video games. And so yeah, there was just and combination of the fact that you had the most powerful graphics cards and the fastest processors all launching roughly at the same time, it made for an interesting year.
Yeah, no question. So what do you see as some of how do you see 2021 shaping up?
We're not really sure. Because right, the vaccine is supposedly on the way, so people can start to resume their normal activities, hopefully around the end of the year. I guess we'll probably get wind of it once people start having tournaments again, right? Those big LAN tournaments and things have all been canceled. But at least right now, we're still seeing that a lot of people are still trying to pick up, high-end gaming machines to keep themselves occupied at home. So for the foreseeable future, we think that it's still going to be these components are still going to be very hot items.
Yeah, no question. Also, I think the nature of work might be changing for a lot of people. Like for us, we were very fortunate in that we had an office to go to, which a lot of people in our business don't. But our office closed down, and so now we're working from home, and a lot of us who were using the not so great work laptop now are using really good home desktops because, you know, they let us do all kinds of things like play games. In my case, run 4 monitors at once, things like that. So I think even when people can go out, there's probably going to be more people working from home than were before.
Yeah, I'm sure that the the base of people who are gamers or were gamers and now who are gamers, that's definitely going to be expanded. You know, I know so many people that would, you know, they considered gaming to be childish before. Right now, I'm an adult. I'm 30 something. I don't need video games anymore. And now they're, what are you doing? Oh, I spent 800 hours playing Animal Crossing. I'm like, oh, okay. Like,
Yes.
um,
Yeah,
so.
that's a big deal. So we're getting close to the end of our half hour, Brad. Was there anything that you wanted to talk about that we have that's going on live by Power that we didn't talk about yet?
I think that we covered everything. You know, like I said, we have our Element CL with updated support for 30 series graphics cards. If I don't know if I mentioned it, but if you do happen to own one of these with a 20 series graphics card and would like to upgrade to a 30 series 3080 or 3070, that we're going to be working with customers to provide that. So, like I said, if you're out there watching, you know, get in touch with our support when you can, or hit us up on Discord. And, you know, we're going to walk people through how that might work. Otherwise, you know, stay tuned. Like I said, April we'll have our 30 series Element CL available, and then in June we'll have our Revolt 3 Mark III on shelves.
Well, thank you so much, Brad. This is really exciting to see. We really look forward to seeing the final version of the case. Thanks again to all of our viewers. You can, of course, follow us on YouTube by going to youtube.com/Tom's Hardware and hitting subscribe, or see all of our coverage on tomshardware.com. And we will see you next time. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Brad.